What I want to do now is bring my current document to be a little bit closer to what the finished product should be. And over here is the finished product. You see that I have basically all of the content in there in a white container, and then as you stretch it out, it seems to get the sides over here seem to kind of stretch with the browser. So how am I going to get closer to that goal with what I have currently? Because now everything stretches out to the width of my browser, and I kind of want to make that one column instead. Really, at the heart of layouts for the web are these very generic HTML elements called div containers. And at their heart, they just start with a very basic tag called the div tag. And I'm going to, right after my body, I am going to enter just that. I have div, just like that. And I'm going to go all the way down to the end of my code. And right before the body ends, I am going to end that div, just like I do any other HTML tag. And now, if we save it and I refresh it, I have a div container. As you see right here, I have the beginning div and I have the ending div, and essentially nothing's changed is the problem. That's because the div container is pretty much the only attribute it has to it is that it's a block level element. Other than that, it has no value whatsoever. So you're probably thinking to yourself, well, what's the point to use this container if it doesn't have any kind of value to it? Well, it's really it being so generic that makes it so powerful, and it's the main tool that you use for creating layouts with HTML and CSS. So let me show you exactly what I'm referring to. So we don't have anything set up for this div container. So now what I want to do is actually create some CSS to associate with this div container. So let me do just that. I'm going to go to my CSS styles tab, and I am going to click new CSS rule, and I just need to affect the tag over there, redefine the tag. And by default I guess it picked the LI, but I want it to affect the div tag. So I'm going to hit OK, and then what do I want to do to it? I just want to define a width for it. That's pretty much all I really need. And if I go, I guess, to box over here, I'll define a width. Let me say 650 pixels. I'll hit apply. So now I did this all through Dreamweaver's CSS box, but if I look, this code should be familiar to me anyway. Looks about right. So now let me save this. Let me go back to my document and refresh it. All of a sudden what happened is that it restrained it to 650 pixels width. So this very generic div container allowed us to apply some property to it, and then it affected everything within that. Now we could have done this with body as well, but we want to kind of leave the body element for other things and kind of allow us a little more flexibility. So really, in most designs, you're always putting in a big div, and it's usually like a container for all of the content in there, so you could kind of move it along whichever way you want. Obviously, I set width, but what if I wanted to put some padding? Well, I could just start type padding, and then if I do, let's say, 30 pixels, which means it's going to put 30 pixels of padding in, top, right, bottom, and left. If I refresh it, you see how it pushed everything to the side. That's pretty cool. So now I have this pretty powerful element called a div in there that allows me to control the positioning of my all of my HTML content within the body.